We can all agree that sustainability of our natural and cultural resources and landscapes is not only important to our quality of life, but also to local economies. But the natural resource challenges faced by the conservation community in the 21st century are immensely different from and more complex than those faced by our predecessors. Landscape conservation cooperatives were formed to address large-scale natural resource challenges that transcend political and jurisdictional boundaries.
Landscape conservation is an all-encompassing phrase. It really talks about not only managing the landscapes, but managing people's use of the landscapes and how we interact with it. So it's really about working landscapes and how we fit in it, and finding ways to make those working landscapes function.
The Upper Midwest and Great Lakes have experienced major ecological changes during the past 150 years due to many stressors. New environmental challenges continue to arise even as we address these historical damages.
The primary reason I think it's worth investing in is because, quite frankly, it's complex managing landscapes, and no one agency can keep their finger on the pulse, try and answer the wide array of information questions that we have today with all the changes in the landscape and climate change. No one group can be a specialty. They can no longer afford to invest in all those products themselves. And so it's really about coming together and learning from one another and sharing what we know.
The impacts of climate change are already evident in warmer water, longer ice-free season, and earlier spring runoff. These changes can cause ripple effects that impact water levels, alter habitat for native wildlife, and affect water quality and critical ecological processes. The Upper Midwest and Great Lakes LCC is one of 22 similar alliances across the country working to develop science-based guidance that will help inform decisions and policies that benefit fish, wildlife, plants, and people.
When you look at the history of wildlife management and resource management across this country, they're pretty young professions on this continent. It really came about in about the last 100 years. And in the early days, we divided up the landscape in order to be able to tackle issues. Now, as technology has progressed, and we're beginning to understand it's more than just wildlife or fisheries or forestry management or people management, it's about trying to manage all those elements together. We're starting to rebuild that landscape. And so the old model of using our individual expertise is evolving into this model where we're bringing that expertise around the table and combining it.
The Upper Midwest and Great Lakes LCC is focusing efforts across 10 U.S. states and 3 Canadian provinces. The area contains some of the continent's most distinct natural resource features, including deepwater habitats of the Great Lakes that support extensive aquatic communities, as well as coastal wetlands, boreal forests, beaches, prairies, and major river systems that support a diverse array of migratory and resident wildlife. Current LCC partners include federal agencies, state fish and wildlife agencies, Native American tribes, Canadian federal and provincial agencies, and many non-governmental and interjurisdictional organizations vested in the future of these precious natural resources.
Building these linkages between agencies, NGO, the private sector is really where we're going to get our real payouts, our benefits in terms of the future and managing landscapes. The old model of government authority and regulation is moving by the way, and we're moving into an era where people want to be educated, they want to learn, and they want to look at incentives for doing the right thing and managing these working landscapes in a manner that's going to keep them whole and productive.
Conservation leadership and on-the-ground efforts are strong and multifaceted, and are energized by a rich history of hunting, fishing, and other outdoor recreational activities, supported by the lakes, rivers, and lands of this landscape.
So it's a whole array of issues out there to try and help managers and agencies become better at what they're doing with both the biological science but also the science of managing people and managing decisions.
In the midst of complex stressors to our natural resources, and from invasive species and climate change to growing populations and energy needs, we must continue to work together to conserve and protect the natural resources of the Upper Midwest and Great Lakes. Landscape conservation cooperatives will help the conservation community work more effectively and efficiently, with maximum return on our investments, for the benefit of fish, wildlife, and their habitats and the American people.